The key is what we know, not just about the plane, but about the incident. Here's what we know about what happened here. We know that at some point, the plane in question lost all contact with the land. We know that there was a change of direction, and we know that it is now utterly missing. So how can we explain those things from the vantage point of a cockpit like that? First of all, let's talk about the scenario of hijacking. Could that account for the basic question here of an inability to have contact with the ground? Yes, of course it could, because hijackers could come in, they could force them to turn off the transponders, they could put the radios off limits. Remember, this was happening in the middle of the night. If this were happening in the cockpit in a quiet enough way, many people back in the plane may not even be aware it was happening. Change of direction. Could that happen in a hijacking circumstance or terrorism circumstance? Of course it could. If they're trying to destroy the plane, it does beg the question, why change direction? Why would you not just crash it where it was? But nonetheless, there was a change of direction, and that does fit. And the missing plane, of course, a plane could go missing in this scenario. But there are many other ways to look at this as well. Let's reset everything here and talk about another possibility here, the idea of a major malfunction. What if all the power went out in here? What if all the power went out, everything went dark and everything failed? In a plane like this, I have to say that's a very hard thing to make happen. There are redundant systems, there are backup systems, there are batteries, there are all sorts of ways in which they still ought to have power so that they'd be able to have some kind of contact. It's hard to imagine them completely losing that, but that's one possibility out there. Change of direction. Yeah, if you had some radical problem with the plane, you lost all pressure in the plane, you had something that made the pilots have to do something different with it and make that turn, sure, that could happen, and maybe they can't communicate while they're trying to do that. And the plane missing, yeah, again, if you talk about some kind of radical problem out there, the plane could go missing. But there is this disagreement up here between the contact and the change of direction. If you're able to change direction of the plane and move it somewhere else, how do you not have enough power at some point in the next hour to call someone and say, we're in trouble? Let's reset again and look at one more possibility here, which people have talked about a bit, the idea of a collision of some sort in the middle of the air. Could that have happened? Imagine something augured into the front of this plane, and it essentially disabled the pilots, disabled the communications, made the plane difficult to fly. Could that mean no contact? Yes, it could from the cockpit. Could that mean a change of direction? Yes, it could. But again, if the plane went back over land with passengers in the back, presumably who have cell phones, it seems like there's a possibility somebody would have had some kind of contact. And the last one is actually a real puzzle here. Could the plane go missing if it collided with some other smaller jet way up in the sky? Of course it could. But another plane would be missing too. And we would be hearing about that from somewhere. So Wolf, when you stack up all these possibilities, we don't have an answer. But when you compare what we know with the possibilities, this is why so many in the aviation community are saying those three facts tell them that it was a deliberate maneuver to turn the plane and go somewhere else. Whether it was done under the duress of a terrorist or because of mechanical problems or something else, they believe it turned for a reason. That seems to be one of the bits of common wisdom right now, although it still is just another step on the way to explaining what actually happened in the real cockpit.